Hello and welcome to the HB3 and 30 video presentation on school transportation funding. The following TEA staff collaborated on the creation of this presentation: Leo Lopez, Associate Commissioner for School Finance; Amy Copeland, State Funding Director; Nora Rainey, State Funding FSP Manager; Heather Justice, Director for College Career and Military Preparation; and Marion Shuddy, Director for System Support and Innovation. The agenda topics we're covering today are the Texas School Finance Commission's recommendations related to transportation funding, transportation before and after HB3, which will include transportation outside of attended zones, and HB3 transportation allotment changes. Additionally, we'll discuss reporting the 2019-2020 transportation information. We'll review transportation topics that are not related to HB3 but that are still pertinent to this discussion. And finally, the last slide of the presentation will provide you with additional information and resources, along with an email address to submit your questions. House Bill 21 of the 85th Texas Legislature, first called special session in 2017, established the Texas Commission on Public School Finance to develop and make recommendations for improvements to the current public school finance system or for new methods of financing public schools. The Commission delivered its report to the Legislature in December 2018. The report identifies ways to update elements of the current school funding formulas and made two recommendations to transportation funding. The first recommendation was to base transportation funding on mileage, and the second was to provide transportation funding to recapture districts. You can view the Commission's final report at the link below. The 86th Legislature's response to the Commission's recommendations were enacted in House Bill 3. In the next section, we'll discuss transportation before and after HB3. First, we'll talk about transportation outside of attendance zones. HB3 made changes to the regular transportation program funding rates that will allow districts to dramatically improve students' access to schools outside of their attendance zone. Previously, the maximum effective rate per mile calculation and linear density rate provided a disincentive for districts to provide home-to-school and school-to-home transportation for students to attend specialized school models. Here's some problems associated with funding based on linear density. Districts may have bused students to their zone school and then had students ride additional transportation to a school outside the attendance zone, or parents may have been required to provide all or part of the transportation by dropping off students at a zone school or other centralized location. Finally, students who didn't have access to transportation faced barriers in accessing specialized courses or other school models. Although some districts currently offer parents and families the choice to attend any school within the district, HB3 empowers more districts across Texas to offer parents and families opportunities to attend schools with specialized models outside of their assigned attendance zones. Specialized school models include schools with specific academic models like dual language, Montessori, or single gender schools, schools with specific themes or focuses like STEM or fine arts, and magnet schools or magnet programs within schools. As a result of HB3, districts now have the option to offer transportation to eligible students from home to school and school to home to schools outside their attendance zone without negatively impacting their transportation allotment. Students also with transportation barriers now have more options to attend specialized school models. Before we start our discussion on HB3 funding changes, let's go over some of the background information regarding the state's transportation allotment. The transportation allotment provides state funds to school districts for certain transportation of eligible students. School districts can receive transportation allotment funds for transporting two types of eligible students: special program students, which are students with disabilities who require specialized transportation to access their academic programs and certain other related services, and who meet other eligibility requirements given in statute, and regular program students, who are students that do not require specialized transportation to access their academic programs. School districts can receive transportation allotment funds for four categories of transportation services: regular route services, special route services, career and technical education route services, and private route services. Here's the statute authorizing transportation funding from the Texas Education Code. Here's a look at regular transportation funding before and after HB3. Prior to HB3, the regular transportation program allotment was calculated using a maximum effective rate per mile based upon the lesser of the prior year program cost per mile, or the prior year linear density, which ranged from 68 cents to $1.43 per mile. Under this funding methodology, some districts underreported routes in order to increase the effective rate. After HB3, the regular transportation program allotment is now calculated using a flat $1 per mile rate. The rate is set by the legislature in the General Appropriations Act, and under this funding methodology, districts are encouraged to report all eligible miles. Finally, the practice of funding eligible student transportation during the school day from a district campus to a location at which students are provided dual credit courses was formalized into law. This slide will outline the implications of linear density versus the $1 per mile. Districts with a linear density rate less than $1 will receive more regular transportation funding. Districts with a linear density rate greater than $1 will receive less regular transportation funding. Implications of the move to a flat $1 per mile rate means that the districts will no longer be penalized for offering more routes with fewer riders to accommodate transportation outside of attendance zones. Let's take a closer look at the career and technology transportation funding before and after HB3. The career and technology funding rate is the effective cost per mile for regular route services for the preceding school year with no maximum rate or amount set by legislative appropriation. The average career and technology cost per mile rate is approximately $3.02. House Bill 3 did not make any changes to the transportation rate for career and technology routes. Transporting students to dual credit, career and technology courses, and work-based learning opportunities during the school day were allowable prior to HB3. HB3 now codifies the practice and encourages providing opportunities for students to engage in these activities. Here are some allowable uses for dual credit and career and technology work-based learning transportation. For dual credit, your district may transport students to another campus within the district, to another campus out of the district, a post-secondary campus such as a four-year college or university campus, or a community college campus, or a Texas Technical College campus. Another eligible location would be a third-party site where dual credit courses are offered, such as an education service center or community center. For career and technology work-based learning, your district may transport students to another campus within the district, another campus outside of the district, a regional career and technology center, or a post-secondary campus, such as a four-year college and university, a community college campus, or a Texas Technical College campus. Finally, another eligible location would be a third-party site where work-based learning courses and experiences are offered, such as an education service center or community center, or even an employer or place of business. House Bill 3 didn't make any changes to the special education funding rate. The rate continues to be set by the legislature in the General Appropriations Act at $1 rate. Let's take a closer look now at funding and recapture before and after HB3. Prior to HB3, recapture districts didn't receive the benefit of the transportation allotment because transportation was excluded from the calculation of weighted average daily attendance. That was used to determine a district's wealth level and recapture amount. After HB3, the calculation of recapture is now based on local revenue in excess of entitlement instead of equalized wealth levels. Transportation continues to be a part of the Tier 1 entitlement for all districts, and costs for transportation are now funded equally between recapture and non-recapture districts. HB3 formally expanded the definition of a regular eligible student to include students who are homeless according to the criteria found in 42 United States Code. Regular route funding continues to allow for a homeless student to be transported back to his or her school of origin or the last campus the student attended if, at the time of the student's identification as homeless, they reside 2 or more miles from the campus to which the student is being transported, or resides in a hazardous area within 2 miles of the campus. HB3 requires the TEA to study geographic variations in resource costs and cost of education, including transportation. The study will be completed by a public institution of higher education. The TEA will provide the legislature the report by December 1st, 2020, and you can see the statute authorizing the study from the Texas Education Code in Section 48.012. Reporting 2019-2020 transportation information. For the purposes of calculating the formula transition grant, HB3 requires that transportation funding be calculated under both the linear density and the $1 per mile formulas. As a result, there's no changes to FSP transportation reporting due to HB3. The 2019-2020 preliminary SOF report currently contains mileage estimates for transportation regular route services. The timeline on your screen illustrates the Transportation FSP module, open dates, due dates, and summary of finance updates. Let's take a look at a couple of frequently asked questions. The first, are districts and charter schools still required to conduct official counts of eligible riders? The answer to that is yes. In order to calculate the Formula Transition Grant, HB3 requires that funding be calculated using both the linear density effective rate and the $1 per mile rate. However, the 2019-2020 regular program transportation allotment will be calculated using the $1 per mile rate. Here's another frequently asked question. When will I see the $1 per mile regular transportation allotment on the FSP Transportation Route Services Report? The answer to that is the $1 per mile regular transportation allotment will be calculated once we receive your 2019-2020 eligible route mileage on the FSP Transportation Route Services Report. The report opens June 1st, 2020 and is due by August 1st, 2020. Now let's take a review of non-HB3 topics. In this section, we'll review transportation topics that aren't related to HB3 but are still important to mention. The first of which is the 2 or more miles rule. Districts may report transportation to school at the beginning of the school day and from school at the end of the day for students who live 2 or more miles from the student's campus of regular attendance. However, there are 2 exceptions to this rule. The first is students who are provided specialized transportation in accordance with the student's IEP or Section 504 accommodations. Another exception is students who are homeless according to the criteria found in 42 United States Code, along with students who live in a hazardous traffic or high risk of violence area as designated by the school board that's within 2 miles of the student's campus of regular attendance. So what exactly are hazardous routes? A hazardous transportation route is a bus or walking route for students that live within 2 miles of the campus they attend who would be subject to hazardous traffic conditions or a high risk of violence if they walked to school. In order to be eligible for funding, the school board must identify hazardous routes and submit an approved hazardous route policy to TEA. Hazardous transportation funding for students will be calculated at the standard rate for regular transportation services, but is limited to 10% of a district's regular transportation program allotment. Finally, districts whose hazardous transportation allotment is already at the statutory cap of 10%, the regular program transportation allotment will not be able to realize any additional increase in revenue from the additional mileage. Let's take a closer look at hazardous routes for high risk of violence areas. To be eligible for hazardous funding for high risk of violence areas, districts must adopt a board policy that identifies specific hazardous traffic or high risk of violence areas for which the allocation is requested. The district must consult with local law enforcement agencies and must obtain law enforcement records that document a high incidence of violent crimes. Finally, if the board will be establishing community walking transportation programs, board policy must indicate that an adult will supervise children as they walk to school. Let's take a closer look at the Bus Pass program. Districts may establish a program to provide bus passes or cards for another transportation system to eligible students and receive TEA reimbursement for those passes or cards. However, the students must be ones who are eligible to use the district's transportation system, but for whom the regular system is not a feasible method of providing transportation. Let's take a closer look at fee-based transportation. Districts have the option to provide transportation to and from school to students who live within 2 miles of their campus and don't live in a hazardous traffic or high risk of violence area, and may charge those students for their transportation. However, districts may not charge students whose transportation is eligible for allotment purposes if the district reports any transportation routes for allotment purposes. Districts that charge a fee must adopt a reasonable procedure for waiving the fee if a student is unable to pay it. Finally, districts may choose to not charge a fee to economically disadvantaged students. Finally, let's take a look at interlocal agreement waivers. The Texas Education Code prohibits districts from providing transportation to students living outside of its boundaries without an interlocal cooperation contract. A district may apply for a waiver for the 2019-2020 school year from the Texas Education Code requirement to enter into an interlocal agreement before providing transportation. Transportation provided to regular or special education students who have voluntarily transferred to or from another school district is ineligible for transportation allotment purposes. Finally, for information on applying for a waiver, please view the TAA letter at the link below. This concludes today's presentation on transportation. For any additional information and resources, please visit the HB3 website, or if you have any questions, shoot us an email at hb3info@tea.texas.gov.